Okay, good morning. It's Friday morning, and I'm going to make this video. Um, this assignment is due next Tuesday. The date on that is going to be the 7th, I believe, because the April 1st was Wednesday, so I believe it's the 7th. This will be due by midnight on Tuesday, the 7th of April. To be clear, the work is intended to be done on Monday and Tuesday of next week, but I'm getting this to you on Friday to give you extra time in case you want to get started on it early. Um, let's see. We're going to start out by you need to open the file that you had before, which is this one right here. And if you did not save this work, then you're going to need to recreate the work by going into the last video and recreating it. But this is where we left off the last time around. Today, our primary learning objective is that of working with a tape measure and also learning how to rotate things. Also, we're going to talk about how to select an object because I have a few students who have told me that they're having trouble selecting an object. I'm going to ungroup this thing. If you see, if I click over here and I click once, at this point, the entire object gets selected. That's because it's a group. If I right click and explode it, it's no longer a group. So now when I select once, I select the surface, select twice, click, click, and I select the surface and all edges. Click, 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 I select the entire object. I suspect that people who are having difficulty selecting their object entirely are doing a click, 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 which doesn't work. See, I'll do click, 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 doesn't work. Click, 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 doesn't work. But click, click, click works. Okay, so you need to do this in a syncopation that you'll get used to once you've worked on this program more often. But there are other ways to select things, and let's talk about that. Now, if you'll at this point, this area here, that's a group. This one's a group. This one is not a group. So we're gonna learn about selecting objects. First of all, I want you to notice that when I draw a square from left to right, it's a solid square. The line is continuous. It's a straight lines. But if I go from right to left, it's a dotted line. Okay, and they mean two different things. If I go from right to left, it's going to select anything and everything that it touches. Now, since that foot, that 2-inch by 5-inch piece right there, is a group, it's going to select the entire group. Okay, because it touched the group. Same thing could be said for now it's going to select the 2-inch piece and it's going to select the 15-inch piece because they're grouped. But if I do that over here, it's not going to select that entire piece up there because that piece is not a single group. It's a bunch of things. It's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines and 6 surfaces. So when I do this, it's only going to select some of the lines and some of the surfaces. And you can see that it selected that line, and that line, and that line. If I rotate around, you'll see that it selected that line back there. It also selected the top surface and it selected the bottom surface, but it did not select any of these lines over here because I didn't touch them. Now, if I were to do this, it's going to select everything in the entire object except for that little line, which I did not choose. I'll do that one again. See, watch. If I go like this, it's touching every line. I've selected every line except for that one little line, and so I'm still not correct. Okay. Now, if I were to say camera, standard views, top, make this easy for me to look straight down on it. If I were to go around it like this, it's going to select if I make one of these squares where it is a solid line, it selects only things that it is entirely going around, which means right now it's only going to select the 15-inch board because the fact that it's touching the 2-inch board isn't going to affect that 2-inch board because it is not entirely encompassing or going around that 2-inch board. So now I'm selecting only the 15-inch board. If I do this, it's going to select the 15-inch board, the 2-inch board, and it's going to select 2 lines and a surface on this one. 2 lines and 1 surface. Oh, actually 4 lines because it selected these ones too. Let me show you that again. See, it only selected this side because that is the only thing that it was entirely going around. I'll do that one again. See, I went all the way like this, and you'll see that the only things that it is entirely going around at this point is the 15-inch board, the 2-inch board, and just that edge of this thing here. It did not go all the way around this line or this surface or these surfaces. It might be a bit confusing to you, but what I want you to take away from this is that if you want to select something, there are different ways to do it. One, you can triple click, boom, 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 and it will select everything that it touches. Okay? I want to show you something else because it's going to show up later. Let's say if I were to add another square here, like that, and then I click, 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 it's going to select that one as well because of the fact that these things are touching each other. Because they're touching each other, there's no way at this point for me to click and select only this object here. Because if I click once, I select the surface, or click twice, I've selected the surface and all bounding edges. Click 3 times, and it grabs this one as well. So for this, I would need to, if I wanted to grab just that, I would need to do that. It's the only way for me to get a hold of that entire surface. I know it's confusing. I'm going to Control Z, get rid of that thing. Okay, so that's about selecting. 2 different ways to select. You can click, once it's grouped, you can just click the object once and it will select the entire group. Okay, you can triple click, boom, 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 or you can go around the entire object to select an object like that. Now, first thing I'm going to need you to do is exactly what I've already done for you, which is I need you to explode this object. So it was a group. As you arrive, it should be like this. It should be a group. I need you to right click and explode this piece of wood here, or this piece of material here. Now, today we're going to create a letter. And you should choose, I want you to choose the first letter of your first name, whatever that is. So some of you, that'll become very easy. If you have an L, congratulations, that's very easy. If you have a Q, that's probably going to be more difficult, but I don't think anybody out there has a Q. But one way or the other, I need you to select camera, standard views, top, be looking straight down at it, like this, and have it ungrouped. So this is no longer a group. Now, it is also important that we're working in the correct direction. And this is very likely to be a mistake that most of the people that make a mistake, I suspect this will be the mistake they will make. So please be careful about this. This thing is 5 inches wide. Okay? This thing should also be 5 inches wide. Oops, it's 5.5, right? That means that it is this direction. In fact, I'm going to do something different to try to avoid this mistake. I'm going to have you put this thing in place before you I'm going to regroup this thing, and we're going to put it in place before we turn it into a letter so that people don't make the mistake of cutting into a letter and having it not fit. So you need to put it in place first, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's talk about the rotate tool. Now that this thing has been grouped, it needs to be grouped before you start rotating things. Otherwise, people will have this kind of problem here. I just exploded it. They'll take this thing and they'll try to rotate it, and oops, something's going on there. I don't understand what's going on. Okay? That's what's going to happen if for some people, and they're going to have this problem if they don't group their work. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to click, click, click. I'm going to select. I'm going to select the entire thing and make it a group. So now when I rotate this thing, you'll see that I can rotate it without a problem, and the whole thing rotates. Now, you need to start out by figuring out which way is 5 inches. So that's the 5-inch direction. That's the 5.5-inch direction. And I want you to make it the same as this one here. So for this one, I'm going to need to rotate it this direction so that it is 5 inches here, the same as it is 5 inches there. So they're rotated in the same direction. Step 1, rotate your object into the correct direction. Now, let's talk about the rotating tool. Let's Control Z that back. The rotating tool can work in lots of different directions. It will, as you can see, it's changing blue, red, green, blue, red, green. That means if I click here, it's going to rotate this direction. If I click here, it's going to rotate that direction. If I click here, it's going to rotate this direction. So you need to recognize what color that little object is. It's a protractor. What color the protractor is. So you want to be clicking on the corner here in the blue direction so that when you're clicking, it'll rotate on this plane here. So for you guys right now, you want to be rotating in the blue with a blue protractor. Okay? Now, you can just click and it'll lock at 90 degrees. But if you're having difficulty with that, you can rotate and then type 90, enter, and it'll rotate 90 degrees. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to click, and I'm going to rotate and type 90, enter, and it rotated 90 degrees. Okay? Now, if I've done that correctly, this is once again 5 inches, and that is 5 inches. Okay? So step 1, you need to rotate your object in the right plane. Edit, delete guides. I'm going to get rid of that guide. Okay? So now I've got my letter and I've got my shelf, and they're rotated in the same direction. Now let's talk about the move tool. Now the move tool is something where people really get this mixed up. If I go over here and I try to put this, I'm trying to put it so that this spot right here is touching that spot right there. People grab it and they try really hard to move it and put it where they need to, and they may spend hours and hours trying to figure out how to make that happen. And that is something that's a problem. If you're having trouble with something and you're spending an inordinate amount of time or a lot of time working on it, most likely 99% of the time you should just go back and watch the video again. Okay, because I do explain it, and here's where I explain that time. So if you're having trouble moving your work into place, this is the moment in the video that you need to be watching for. In order to move something accurately, you have to choose a spot that you want to move from, and I'm going to move the bottom corner of this thing, and I'm going to put that bottom corner right there. You have to move from a spot to a spot like that. If I grab this thing and I try to line those two things up, I'm never going to get it lined up correctly. It's just not going to happen. I'm never going to get that perfect enough to line that up. See, that looks like it's lined up, but it's not. And you can see that it's not. The correct answer is to grab it from the spot you want to rotate and then line it up. Click. Back up. Click. Put it where you want. It says end point and group. It's telling you that it's lined up, and click. And that's what I need you guys to do. Step 1, do this. Or the next step. First of all, you rotate it. And at this point, they should be the same width. Recognize that if you've done this wrong, your work may look like this here. If you've made a mistake, this is what your work might look like. And you'll see that this is wider than this is. And that's because you didn't rotate this thing into the right direction. Click here, click there. Okay? Now, I'm going to take the rotate tool. I want you to notice that if I put this here, I might accidentally be rotating this one at the same time. It's very difficult. It gets confusing. As I put this here, I want to be rotating this object. And some of you might end up accidentally rotating the bottom one instead. So to make that simple, you want to select this object ahead of time. See how it's selected? I clicked on it, click, and it's now selected. Go to the rotate tool, put the rotate object here, and also notice, see how sometimes it gets like that. See how this is going to rotate in the blue direction? I don't want that. I'm trying to rotate in the red direction. And if you're having trouble getting it to stay in this red direction, you can put it here and I think hold the shift key, which causes it to stay in that perspective. Now, once you've clicked in that corner, this is basically saying this is where I want to rotate. This is the axis that I want to rotate to. You can click pretty much anywhere on this line and click and then come over and it will tell you when you've locked on that other line. And that's where you're going to end up. I would do it again, but you can rewind that if you need to watch that. This is your goal at this point, is to place the letter, which you're going to be cutting into a letter today, onto the shelf. And that's pretty much it for right now. Step 1, I want you to rotate that into place. Step 2, I want you to rotate this piece into place. So for this one, I'm going to need to rotate it 90 degrees this direction first. I'm going to need to rotate it. Oops, see, I clicked while it was blue, and that's a problem because I want to be rotating the other direction. If I rotate right now, it's going to rotate in the wrong direction. I don't want that. I Control Z. So I want to make sure that this is red while I'm clicking. Click, click, rotate, 90, enter, 90 degrees. Okay, so I need to rotate this into the correct position. Okay. Okay. Now, this is the first time we're going to be using the tape measure tool. Now, we've used it before, but we're going to talk about the tape measure tool. I'm going to choose the tape measure tool, and I'm going to come here, and I'm going to measure down 2 inches. So I'm going to type 2, enter. Okay, and by doing that, I have now put this at 2 inches in. Okay. Now I'm going to select that corner there of the 2-inch piece, this corner. I'm going to place that right there and click. And now I put my foot in place. Okay. I'm going to edit, delete guides to get rid of that. And now I've got both of my pieces put together. Okay. Next, I'm going to draw a line from here. You know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to keep this video a little simpler. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is the last thing I'm going to do. So your step 1 is to get your object put into this position. Put your bookshelf basically together. Okay. The next thing I want you to do, as I shift that over, make sure that it's behind, is I want you to camera, standard views, front, no, camera, standard views, back. One way or the other, I want you to get yourself into this position where you're looking straight on at the at your letter. Okay. Okay. My name is. I'm going to go. Okay. As you probably all know, my name is Steve, which means that I'm going to do an S, which is probably more complicated than most of your letters, and that's probably a good thing. So I'm going to start out by coming up here, and I'm going to type 0.5, enter. And I put basically a line at 1/2 inch, which is 1/8 of an inch higher than this cut, which is intentional. This is 1/2 inch. So you're going to measure up 1/2 inch. Then you're going to measure down 1 inch this way, up 1 inch this way. Actually, you're going to do things differently depending on your letter. But I'm going to measure 1 inch. I'm going to try to make sure that everything I do is at least 1 inch thick. And I'm going to get creative with the curving tools here. That's an interesting error message which I should point out to you. Oh, I didn't do it that time. I'm going to Z my way back because I think I am getting to, I'm going to need to come in tighter. Now, I'm not going to require extreme perfection on this. I'm just going to require that you have some semblance of a letter. Oh, that's interesting. Um, Something I forgot to do. When I clicked here, I expected that line to go away, but I ended up with a line attached there. The reason for that is I forgot to do something. I need you to take this object, edit it, and explode it. You need to have this object exploded while you're working on it. Okay. I'm not really worried about trying to make your work perfect right now. I just want you to create some semblance of a letter where I can tell that you were creating the letter. There you go. That's not beautiful, but it works as a letter S. Now, I want you to understand how this letter is supposed to be. Um, it's supposed to have a half an inch down here, which sets down into this rabbit. Okay. So when I push this thing through, which I'm going to do now, I'm going to push and then type 0.75, enter. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, 0.75, enter. You'll see that this foot is above this letter. That's actually exactly 1/2 inch, or 1/8 of an inch. That's because this is a 1/2 an inch from earlier, and this is 3/8 of an inch. So you need to have a letter which looks remotely like the first letter of your name, which for some of you will be easier, and it needs to be created in this object. Remember that some of you might be having difficulty because you have, this thing is still a group. And when you made the shape on top of the group, you needed to right click, explode this, make it a group again, so I can show you, right click, explode. This needs to be exploded. However, if this is not a group and this is not a group, they will stick to each other. I want to show you something else real quick. If I push this and type 0.75, enter, and then I come over here and I double click, it's going to remember the last time I used the push pull tool. So you might play around with that. I'm going to edit, delete guides. I am going to, one last time, I'm going to make this thing a group. And this is the end of what I'm going to expect you to do today. So the image that I'm looking for you to take that you need to send to me is going to be this image right here. So I've got your letter, it's in place. You've got your foot in place. This should look like it's about this distance should be about the same distance there. So this should be placed in the correct spot. This thing should be sitting in here nicely. It should not be wider than the shelf. And I'm going to go ahead and take that screenshot now. And file, save as, save it as whatever you want it to be saved. Okay? Then you're going to, and then you should file, save as, bookshelf. And then I also want you to, so you're going to save, you're going to take a screenshot of your work. Then you're also going to title your save your work as bookshelf, and you're going to save that into your T folder. So you're going to save your actual SketchUp file into your folder. You're also going to save this image into your folder. File, save as, bookshelf, and you're going to save that into the folder so that you have both of them in the folder. You're then going to go into your Google Drive. In your Google Drive, you should have a folder. I'm going to go to somebody's random folder here. Ben Nelson. You're going to go into your folder and you're going to right-click, add a new folder, and it's going to be titled Assignment 3. So you've got Assignment 3. You're going to open that up, and you're going to go to your T folder, and you're going to drop two things into that. You're going to drop the image, and you're going to drop the SketchUp file. Just like that. 2 uploads complete. So now so when I look on my folder, I see my drive, the period that you're in, your name and that folder, and when I click on Assignment 3, which is right there, I see the image and I have a SketchUp file. That way I can open up the SketchUp file and see if I can figure out what you did wrong in case I want to give you notes. But most likely what I'm going to do is if there's something wrong here, I'm going to take it and I'm going to drag it back into Ben Nelson third period. And when okay, has been moved. Okay, that's fine. When you go back to your folder, when you see that you don't have credit for the assignment yet, you're going to come back to the folder and you're going to find your work looking like this. You're going to be looking at your folder. You're going to find your folder like this, but what's going on? I've got this here and this. Okay, so that one was accepted, but this one was not accepted. Well, what's wrong with this picture? And you're going to need to figure out what's wrong with this picture because something clearly had to have been wrong with this picture. Otherwise, I wouldn't have moved it back over this folder. This is my way of checking your work because I do this over and over and over again. Every 3 or 4 times I check your work. And if I find something wrong, I move it over here, and it's your job to look at your work, and if there's something wrong with it, go back to the video and see if you can figure out what was wrong with it. Problem solving is a key skill that you need to learn. Now, I'm going to delete these things from his, Control Z. I'm going to go back into Assignment 3 and delete that. Ben, I'm going to leave that Assignment 3 there for you. Now, today is Friday, and I'm going to put this thing up today. You have until Tuesday at midnight to get this work in because after Tuesday, you're not going to be working you're going to have spring break off from what I currently understand. As I currently understand it, as of the end of Tuesday, you're not going to be working you're not going to have any work due until after spring break. So you have until Tuesday midnight to get this turned in. If you have this turned in by Monday at midnight, I'll give you the usual extra credit that I offer. So my advice is to get this done by Monday at midnight so that I can check that work. I will probably be checking this Monday morning, which means if you get it in by Sunday night at midnight, you're going to find that on Monday I'm going to check all the work and I will have moved things around and I will have let you know whether or not you've made any mistakes. And that way you have a chance to try to fix that by Monday night. If you get it done by Monday night and everything's done, everything's submitted, it's all in the correct folder, so you'll get extra credit. It's not due until Tuesday night at midnight, though, and that's when this assignment is due. I think that's pretty much it. I hope you guys have a wonderful spring break. Remember that all work that you've done, all assignments up to this point, if you have a 0, you can still do that work. Send me an email. Tell me you submitted that work, and I will give you half credit for it. And that will be for the rest of the semester. Any work that I assign, if you don't get it done in time, you can still always redo that work and always get at least half credit, which is certainly better than no credit at all. All right, you guys have an excellent spring break, and I will see you back after.